we're born lovable. So you can, when you're reading this to your child, you can remind them that you don't need to try and find your lovability or your worth here on earth, because we were all born lovable. Nobody looks at a baby and thinks, well, when you start walking and talking, then we'll have a think about how lovable you are. No, we were just born that way. So that message is repeated through the book. And the little bear's like, well, okay, but what about when I get my homework wrong? What about when I try something? Yeah, definitely, Elaine. Can you message that today if you have time? I'm just working through them today and tomorrow. That'll be perfect. So mum's like, you were born lovable. And little bear's like, well, but what about when I get my homework wrong? And this is also really helpful for us adults to remember how to communicate the message of unconditional love. Because when your child gets their homework wrong, then you're saying, yeah, like, you are going to make mistakes, but even when you're making the mistakes, the truth never changes. The truth of who you are never changes. And I know as a coach working with parents that this is a message that is key for kids, because like, I see so many adults say, oh, my child's a perfectionist. And what you're really saying is, my child's afraid of making mistakes because he thinks that when he gets his homework wrong, for example, that he isn't good. And I've sat next to 5-year-olds years ago in the classroom. I remember sitting next to a 5-year-old boy in year 1 in the UK, we call it year 1, and he was already comparing himself to his classmates because he couldn't do the work the same as them. And I'm like, this is crazy, you're 5. So this is a message that all children need to hear. Hello, Lottie. You need to hear it as well, don't you? You've read this book, or I've read it to you, right? So that message of unconditional love is repeated many times, and you can, as I say, explain to your child what that means. And then the bear starts to realise, like, so maybe I am lovable as I am. This is when he starts to realise. And then he has more questions, like we all do. But how about when my friends don't want to play? How about when my friends are unkind and they're telling me to go away? How about when I'm, feeling tired, when I'm angry? Because when we feel angry, even as adults, we forget even in that moment that we're still lovable. Okay? Because we've been given messages from other people of conditional love, which is, when you act a certain way, when you behave as I want you to, I'll love you then. So all of us have been given that message at some point, and this is turning the table on that. It's such an important book, the message that this book holds, because it's saying, even when you're angry, I love you. And even as an adult, if you think, I don't feel like I'm there yet, join the club, because this is I want to say this book in a way is a bit of ahead of its time, as in the message of this is going to stretch you, because there's going to be points in this book where you as an adult think, gosh, I don't talk to my child in an unconditionally loving way like this book says. And I want you to realise that that's okay, because this is a learning journey for all of us. I don't do this all of the time. Thank you, Lottie. It's just that I've learned this information and I'm now practicing it in my life and teaching other people, and we're just all practicing along the way. So it might bring up stuff for you where you think, gosh, like, do I give my child the impression that I don't love them through the way that I speak to them when they're angry? Okay, so, this is a message for all of us. This is a message that's going to stretch Lottie's tail. That's going to stretch a lot of people with their understanding of what love really is. And it turns out we all need unconditional love. We don't thrive when somebody is disappointed at us, when we're feeling angry. But the point is many adults I know are going to struggle with demonstrating that message to their kids, because they were, not because they're bad, because they weren't shown it themselves, and that's the truth of it. So this is an important story that you can snuggle up. I don't know if it's like cold like in the UK where you are, but we're hitting autumn big time here. And you can snuggle up with your blankets and a tail. Hello. You can snuggle up with a blanket and a hot drink, and you can start to let this message sink in for yourself, like these two birds are here, you can read this to your children and you can remember this, start to let this message sink in for yourself as well. Or maybe you're like me and you're not going to sit and read it to children necessarily, but you're going to read it to yourself because you love children's books like me. And no, I'm not the only one. I absolutely love kids' books. Oh, just jumping on the page now. So there you have it. So if you just joined, you can get this on. Are you trying to turn the page? If you haven't got this yet, you can pick this up on Amazon. I actually love this. This is probably one of my favourite pages actually. Because here Bear's saying, I love the illustrations. I mean, this is the one where he's messing about and he's like, but what about when it's late and you're telling me it's bedtime and I'm not in my bed yet? This is his bed, by the way. How many of you can relate to this? Tap the heart if you can relate. Hey Maria, it's Just As You Are. It's my new children's book. I've just received all my pre-order copies today, so super excited. You can pick it up on amazon.com or .co.uk. All Amazons wherever you live, I'm sure you can get it there. There's a link to it up in the bio link at the top of this page. You'll see a link there. But how many? Tap the hearts if you can relate to that your kids don't go to bed when it's their bedtime. And I love that this is his little bed, bless him. This is his bed. This is what bears sleep on, didn't you know? And he's like, nope, I'm going to do a little headstand. It's not bedtime yet. And I know when I'm